All right, crew. We have done a lot of work with ratio tables, but up to this point, it's been pretty informal. So I want to teach you how to use this really cool tool called a ratio table. And a ratio, you had this on your warm-up yesterday, but a ratio is a comparison of two or more values. And there are three ways that we can express a ratio. We can do it in words and say 3 to 2. We can do it with a colon and say 3 to 2. Or we can do it with a fraction and say 3 to 2. Okay? We can also use for every statements, and we've talked about that before. Okay? So our big goal today is to talk about how we can use a ratio table as a tool when solving problems. Okay. We're also going to work with this thing called a yurt. And a yurt is a type of shelter found in some state parks. Each is 16 feet in diameter, okay? So from one side to the other, going through the middle, it's 16 feet. So it's probably close to 3 of me tall, or wide. If you put 2 more of me on top, that's how wide it would be across. Yeah?
I thought it meant like all the way around, which that's practically my trampoline.
Yes. So that's another word, we would call that circumference, but this is the diameter, okay? So, and each yurt, I'm going to circle this, can accommodate or hold 6 people, and we're going to use that information today, okay? So, when working with a ratio table, there's lots of different strategies we can use. And the first thing I want to show you is how we can scale up with our ratio table. So you can multiply columns by the same number to get equivalent or equal ratios. It can be handy to use doubling and multiplying by 10. Those are the 2 multiplication strategies that I use most often. But you can multiply by any number. Yeah?
Why does it have the 6 on top and the 1 on bottom?
Good question.
Should we want to have the bigger number on the bottom?
It doesn't really matter. But what we do know from this first part that we read is that each yurt can accommodate 6 people. So for every 1 yurt, it holds 6 people. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you just how we can use this multiplication. Let's say that I want to double the number of yurts, so I now have 2 of them, which means I need to double the number of people, so I would have 12. Okay? Let's double this again. If I can now have, 4 people, 4 yurts, I'm sorry. How many people would I have?
24.
Awesome. Now I told you my other favorite thing to multiply by is 10 when using ratio tables. So this would be 40 yurts, and how many people?
240.
Oh, thanks for helping me out. Okay, so from this table we know that 2 yurts can accommodate 12 people. Okay? 2 yurts can accommodate 12 people. I also know that 4 yurts can accommodate 24 people. And the last one I have is 40 yurts can accommodate 240 people. All right, so that's some information I can get from my ratio table. So the first strategy with your ratio table is you can scale up by multiplying. Okay. Another strategy we can use is to scale down or divide. Now from the previous table, we knew that 240 yurts can hold, 40 yurts can hold 240 people. Okay, now I'm going to scale down. And in this situation, it says you can also divide columns by the same number to get equivalent ratios. The ratio table above shows us that 40 yurts can sleep 240 people. And we can use this ratio to determine how many people could fit into 8 yurts. So our goal here is to get our number of yurts to 8. And I like to draw this little arrow so I know what my goal is. Okay? So I know if I take 40 and divide it by 5, I'm going to get 8. You got it.
And then 2.
Okay. And whatever I do to the top, I have to do the same thing to the bottom. So what is 240 divided by 5?
48.
Let's do this. I'm going to split 240 into 200 and into 40. Okay. So how many times does 5 go into 40? 8. 8. Okay. And how many times does 5 go into 200?
40.
40. So yeah, it would be 48. So 8 yurts can accommodate 48 campers. Okay. Now, if I wanted to do a different number, I could. I'm just looking for a common factor of 240 and 40. All right. Now here's another strategy I want to show you. And this is adding columns. And this is the place where most 6th graders make mistakes. So I want to make sure you know how to do it really well. So starting with our same values as before, 1 yurt holds 6 people. All right. Ultimately, my goal here is to get to how many people can fit in 5 yurts. Okay, so looking at this, how many people can fit into 5 yurts?
30.
Okay, so if we were to do 30, or we wanted to get to 5 yurts, we could multiply 1 by 5 and the number of people by 5. So we know that it is 30. But right now, it's my goal to show you how we can use a strategy to get to 5 yurts, okay? This is not as efficient in this case, but it's a strategy that you might want to use in the future, okay? So the first thing I want to do here is I have this column here, this first column here, and I want to add it to itself. I want to add column 1. Notice how I have add column 1, which means I now have 2 yurts and 12 people. Okay, now remember my goal is to get to 5. Now I'm going to add column 1 to this again. So remember that column 1 had 1 yurt and 6 people. I'm going to add that to here. So I have 1 yurt plus 2 yurts. How many yurts would that be?
13.
All right. And then 18. Okay. Now, it was my goal to get to 5 yurts. So I can see that I'm at 3 right here. And I have to think about how am I going to get to 5 yurts. So what do you think?
Add column 2.
Add column 2. So this would be like column 1, here column 1, and then I would have column 2. Yeah, let's add column 2 here. All right. So that means I'm going to have 5 yurts, because 2 plus 3 is 5, and then 12 plus 18 is 30. All right? Which is what we got before. And remember here, I just wanted to show you how we could add columns. That was okay. For our next goal, I want to talk about how to subtract columns. So we've multiplied columns, we've divided columns, we have added columns, and now we're going to subtract columns. So in this one, we want to know how many campers can be accommodated by 7 yurts. So we're trying to get this bottom number to 7. Okay? And the easiest way, the most efficient way would just be to multiply times 7. But today, it's my goal to show you how to subtract columns. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to multiply by 8. Just because I want to show you how to subtract the column. Okay. So that means 48 people can fit into 8 yurts. Okay. Now my big goal here is to show you how to subtract the column. Because remember, I wanted to get to 7 yurts. Okay. So every time I take away 1 yurt, column 1 right here has 1 yurt in it. So I'm going to take away 1 yurt to get to 7. How many people do I take away?
6.
6 people. So now I have 42 people will fit into those 7 years. Okay. Yeah.
Did you purposely multiply it by 8, or like did you just do that so you could subtract? Because if we're doing this, we wouldn't have a dignified number that we have.
I just did that to show you how we can subtract columns.
Okay, so in a different case, because we had 8 years, that's what we're subtracting.
Yeah. Or it could say something like, how many could fit into 9? So you can multiply it by 10 and then subtract 1 column. Yeah. All right. I want to show you that we can put a lot of different techniques together. So this says you can combine multiple techniques in one table. So my goal is to get to 19 yurts. Okay? I want to get to 19 yurts right here. Okay? And I'm going to put this little arrow to remind me that I'm trying to figure out how to manipulate my table to get to 19. Okay? All right.
Wouldn't we just 8 times 2 plus 3?
You could do that. Yeah. Okay, so the first thing I want to do here, and this is just how I chose to get there. There's different ways we could get there. I'm going to multiply by 10. So I know that 60 people will fit into 10 years. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to divide by 2 because I want to know about 5 years. I'm trying to build my numbers to get up to 19. So I'm going to divide. I'm going to take half of everything. So 30 people, half as many people, will fit in 5, which is half as many yurts. Okay. Now remember, I'm trying to build to get to 19, so this is what I'm going to do next. I'm going to take this 5 right here, and I'm going to get up to 20. Okay. So 5 times 4 is 20. 30 times 4 is 120. So there are 20 yurts can hold 120 people. Okay. All right. Minus column 1. You got it. So I'm going to look at column 1 right here, and I want to subtract 1 yurt, which would leave me with 19 yurts. How many people am I going to subtract? 6. Sometimes kids say I have to subtract 1 from both of them, and I'm glad you understand your ratio. If we take away 1 yurt, we have to take away 6 people. So we would have 114. So 19 yurts can accommodate, there we go, 114 campers. So we subtracted column 1 at the end because we wanted to get down to 19 yurts. We were at 20 and we needed to get down to 19. Okay, our next problem says the 6th grade class is going to go yurt camping. There are, I'm going to circle this so I remember it, 172 6th graders, and the state park requires a ratio of 1 adult chaperone to every 5 students. My first question says, how many chaperones will they need? So I'm going to set up a ratio table. You have yours all ready for you. And I want to make a ratio table of adults. Adults, give me an L in there. Let me rewrite that. Adults to students. And my problem told me that for every 1 adult, they allow 5 students. Okay. All right, so I need to get my number of students up to 172. Okay, because that's how many 6th graders there are. So the first thing that I want to do is try and get this to 172. So I'm going to multiply by 30. Which means that 30 adults are needed for 150 students. Now this 150 is 22 away from my goal. Okay? So the next thing I'm going to do is go back to this first column. Remember, it's 22 away from my goal. So I'm going to go to my first column and multiply by 5 because I can get my number of students to 25 and my number of adults to 5. But I can get this to 25, which is close to the 22 more students that I need. Now the next thing I want to do is add together these two columns. Okay. So that means if I add column 2 to column 3, 35 adults are needed for 175 students. Okay. All right, so this is 3 over the number of students we have in 6th grade. But we need that many chaperones because otherwise there would be some kids who are hanging out without a chaperone, which is not good. So based on our ratio table, we need 35 chaperones. Okay, and our next question says, how many people, campers and chaperones, will go on this trip? All right, so if we have 172 6th graders plus our 35 chaperones, let's add those together, we will have 207 people on our trip. Yeah.
Well, so for the ratio tables, like, how do you know what numbers you need to multiply or subtract or divide? Like, how do you know which numbers?
You have to figure that out. I knew that I needed to get to 172, so I had to figure out how I wanted to manipulate my numbers to get to 172.
It's okay if you go a little bit over it?
Yeah, because in this case, because if we only had 34 adults, that would be
2 of the 6th graders.
that would be 5 less people, and there'd be 2 6th graders just hanging out. Yeah, who didn't have a chaperone. Okay.
Thank you.
You are welcome. Great question. Okay, so our next question says, complete the ratio table to determine how many yurts they will need. Okay, going back to the beginning of our problem, we know that 1 yurt holds 6 people. Okay, we're trying to get our number of people here up to 207. In our previous problem, we found out that it was 207 people who are going on this trip. So going back to your question, we want to figure out how to manipulate these numbers to get to 207. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is multiply by 30. And for now, there are these hints in there for you. In just a little bit, you're going to get to do it all by yourself. So 6 times 30 is 180. So for 30 yurts, we have 180 people. Okay. And this is close to our 207. It is 27 away. So I'm going to multiply. If I multiply this 6 times 4, I can get pretty close. That'll give me 24 more people who can have a yurt. I'm going to add together my 2 columns here. Okay, this says plus column 2, so I'm going to add these 2 columns together. So that means I have 204 people for 34 yurts. Okay, I need to do a few more to get to 207. Okay, otherwise I'm going to have 3 people who have no place to sleep. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to add 1 more yurt, which will have 6 more people. So that means 1 more yurt and 6 more people, which would be 210. It's better to have more yurts than not enough. It says how many yurts will they need?
Why do they give you the
They use
answer?
35.
It's kind
Okay.
of funny.
Well, we're doing it together. This is the first time you've done ratio tables. Okay? And it says, will each yurt have 6 campers? Will each yurt have 6 campers?
No.
No.
Here's one that has 2.
Okay. One will have only 3.
Won't they have like 5 campers and 1 chaperone?
What do you mean?
5 campers to have.
Oh, never mind. I thought it was. They said campers there.
Right. I'm glad that you're reading your question so carefully.